I don't want to be China. I don't want to be North Korea when it comes to the unborn.
You know, Senator, there are so many Republicans who are pro-life, but there are also a lot of Republicans who believe in federalism and states' rights and on things like deciding their own laws on abortion.
Sure.
And this federal abortion ban would go against that.
This is not a states' rights issue. This is a human right issue. At 15 weeks, a baby sucks its thumb. At 20 weeks, you're encouraged to sing to a child because
Which is what I am right now. I'm 20 weeks.
She's 20 weeks, folks. I don't care what California does on most things. I care here. I am not going to sit on the sidelines in Washington, D.C. and tell the pro-life community Washington is closed for business. I want 47 of 50 European nations ban abortion at below 15 weeks. So no matter what California or Maryland will do, these are human beings in development. I am going to advocate a national minimum standard.
What about Oklahoma?
They can do it. Under my bill, you can go below 15 weeks, but I'm drawing a line like Europe, and I'm rejecting China. California is adopting an Oregon Chinese abortion policy, and I do not believe federalism requires me to sit on the sidelines and watch a baby at 30 weeks, 28 weeks be dismembered. I will not do that.
So yeah, if you were looking for someone with fewer steadfast principles or consistent values than Lindsey Graham, you'd be out of luck. This was Lindsey Graham claiming that abortion should not be a state's issue, it should be a federal issue, which doesn't exactly square with this position espoused by Graham all of 1 month ago.
The point I'm trying to make is I've been consistent. I think states should decide the issue of marriage and states should decide the issue of abortion.
Yeah, no, Lindsey's been consistent that abortion is a state's issue, except that it's a federal issue and the state should have no right to decide. Got it. I think it's pretty telling, too, how this is all being driven by Lindsey Graham, who is an old man with no children, no significant other, and no family. And yet he's decided that he should have the unilateral right to be able to dictate when and how you have your family. For a party that beats its chest about small government, it really truly does not get any bigger than this. It's also strange how Lindsey Graham tries to justify his actions by pointing to what other countries do. Like, Republicans have predicated their entire identity on opposing the globalists. Their leader's motto is literally America first, but now they want to point to the international community to dictate what the United States does here at home? You know what else Europe does? They have socialized medicine. Should we adopt that? They have 55% top marginal tax rates. Should we adopt those? Or are we just cherry-picking things that are convenient for your position and then ignoring everything else? Notice too how Graham pivots to this language at the end that babies are, quote, being dismembered, which isn't dissimilar to this language by RNC chair Ronna Romney McDaniel. Sorry, I mean Ronna McDaniel because, shh, we're still pretending that she's not related to Mitt Romney.
I think every candidate has to address it in their state. I do not think they can ignore it. I think they have to take it head on. This is where the Democrats want to play. They'll have the money to make this an issue, so we have to tackle it. Put them on the defensive on their policy of due date abortion, on gender selection abortion. I think that's what China does, that you can abort a baby just because it's a girl. And then pivot to the voter as a whole voter. Most voters don't wake up thinking about abortion every day. What they're thinking about, and we know this, is crime in the economy. So it's got to be a three-step process.
Due date abortion. So whether it's dismemberment or abortion at the moment of birth, neither of which are occurring, neither of which exist in reality, the Republicans' entire MO is to use graphic, scary language because all they have is fear porn. I mean, I'm sorry, but please just use some common sense here. Is any woman carrying a pregnancy to term for 9 months and then just deciding to abort it, what, for sport? What a mindless, aggressively stupid position. The notion that late-term abortions aren't a wrenching, brutal, miserable decision that's almost exclusively the result of health complications is backwards at best and insulting at worst, which makes these efforts by people like Lindsey Graham and Ronna McDaniel Romney all the more shameful for exploiting these people in their darkest moments for their own personal political gain. They're trying to play it off as if they're the ones speaking for the voiceless, when these women are not voiceless. They are exercising their freedom to have autonomy over their own bodies. And those women exercising that freedom, by the way, are in the majority. Remember, 70% of Americans across the political spectrum are in favor of Roe and protecting a woman's right to a safe and legal abortion in this country. 70%. And so it shouldn't come as a surprise that Republicans have to lie and fearmonger and straight up invent non-existent scenarios like due date abortion, because if they were forced to tell the truth about their positions, which is that they simply do not think you should have the right to decide your own healthcare decisions, then no one would vote for them. And not for nothing, but when your only way to get votes is to lie, you might be doing it wrong. But look, the simple fact is this. If Lindsey Graham wants to show up on national television and continue to make this election a referendum on abortion rights, then I'm all for it. I am all for making sure every single American knows where this party stands on this issue. I'm all for letting people know that when a rapist impregnates his victim, Republicans think that victim should be further punished by carrying that pregnancy to term. I'm all for letting people know that when a relative rapes his daughter or niece, Republicans think that child should be forced to give birth to her own brother or sister or cousin. I'm all for letting people know that when a pregnancy is non-viable, Republicans think you should continue to carry that fetus in your womb even though it's not going to take a single breath. I'm all for letting people know that when a woman's life is in danger, Republicans are so pro-life that they'd either prevent or impose obstacles to allowing a woman to save her own life by aborting that fetus. Let's make sure every single American knows where these people stand. And the fact is, so far, Americans have made their preference abundantly clear. Voters in the reliably red state of Kansas showed up in almost presidential election turnout numbers for a referendum that the pro-choice voters won 60-40 in Kansas. And that's to say nothing of the almost double-digit swing to the left that we've seen in the 5 special elections since Dobbs. In other words, voters have made perfectly clear how they feel about this issue. The fact that Republicans are still pressing forward as aggressively as possible is all the proof you need that these people do not care about the will of the people they're supposed to represent. They care solely about imposing minoritarian theocratic rule onto everyone else. They don't want to run a government, they want to run a church. So with that said, I would encourage Lindsey Graham and the rest of these Republicans to continue making their appearances on TV and holding press conferences and promising that Republicans will bring this nationwide abortion ban up for a vote. And I'll continue to make these videos, not to land some type of a gotcha on them, but instead to help those Republicans spread the word about where they stand. My intention is to make sure that every single American is well aware of Lindsey Graham's position here, well aware of his promise to bring this bill up for a vote the moment they have the majority. And for those watching, just know that what happens in November will determine the future of abortion rights in this country. If Republicans take the majority, they'll be one step closer to refusing to certify any Democratic win in 2024, which will mean that we may be just a few years away from a nationwide abortion ban, from New York to California. Whether that happens will be up to us in only a few weeks. So make sure you're registered, make sure you have a plan to vote, and most importantly, make sure you find 3 people who didn't vote before, people who think that Americans should have the right to their own bodily autonomy, and make sure they're prepared to vote as well, because it's all on the line on November 8th. Before you go, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. You can click the thumbnail right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work even further, the best way is to subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. There you can check out my interviews with major players in the world of politics, including President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, Jamie Raskin, and so many more. Plus other interviews that live exclusively on the podcast. That link is also right here on this screen, or just search No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen wherever you listen to podcasts.